Wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone, and welcome to the 2012 preseason show. Today is Sunday, January 8th, 2012, and the year is off to an amazing start. Today we're going to do a little bit different. Of course, how we traditionally run the show is that I'm the host, and I, of course, deliver a lot of information in regards to esoteric knowledge. Today we're actually going to begin our panel, which is going to allow us to begin to expand into multiple topics and also speak with people who have the experience and the know-how necessary to give you a premium level of spiritual experience. And just as we always start this, actually I'm going to need to go into the chat room really quick and make sure that everyone can hear me okay, so that way before we begin the show we have clarity on audio, so what's being shared here today that everyone can get connected to. So I'm just going to wait here for a moment. And actually, we just opened the chat box. I do apologize. We've had some type of technical difficulty this morning, but everything is ironing itself out. And so I'm just going to take a moment here because, of course, this is a preseason show. And we're also coming back from the vacation of last week. And I just want to take a moment for everyone to kind of get themselves gathered. We're going to have 3 people on the panel today, and they're going to be presenting some of the information. And the main tune of today's show is, what do you think will happen in 2012? And we want to get that question out, and we want to get it answered, and we want to get some clarity on exactly what we should expect this year. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and copy that link inside the Resistance chat box to the Blog Talk Radio chat box for whoever wants to go ahead and use that chat box. And I did get an okay in the Resistance chat box itself that everything sounds great. So you may hear a little bit of breakup for a moment, but that's only because I now closed the window. So I'm going to go ahead and begin this. First, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about a couple things, especially some of the things that have happened this year already in regards to some indicators of what we should be looking forward to for the rest of the year. In addition to that, I'm going to be bringing on my guest, or actually the panel, which is the Resistance member Nima, who's definitely a moderator at the Resistance, very brilliant individual. We're going to have him on the panel, and we're going to also have Wes and Crystal, who are actually married with children and deeply involved into the esoteric knowledge and how to apply that in 2012 in the raising of their children and just in life in general. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to start the show off by first saying welcome to everyone to 2012. We've been waiting for quite some time to get to this point, and there's of course been a lot of information coming across about what we should expect this year. And so everyone's kind of geared up to see major changes not only within their internal life but in the external world that they live in. And it has showed already that it definitely will be doing that for us, and many of us have been already benefiting off of that. But what we want to do today is we want to get some groundwork done on how not to allow your consciousness to be steered in the wrong direction in this time of manifestation, because you have to realize that manifestation energy is almost default energy. It's just about what you're manifesting that brings forth what comes next. So this energy of this year has the ability to, whatever you're thinking, it has the ability to manifest. And so it's very important to guard your subconscious and conscious mind against different, what I would say, prophecies or different predictions of things that are going to happen that won't benefit you. And this is how we're going to begin the year off, is by teaching people how to basically protect their subconscious. And so the first thing that I wanted to talk about was something that I discovered that was very interesting, and I think this kind of is going to connect in with a lot of the stuff of figuring out what age we're actually going into next. Some people will say we're going into the 5th sun cycle, and I do see a lot of what's related to this year related to the number 5. So I can also see why it was very imperative for us to close out last year with having a full understanding of what the pentagram is really about, because of course the symbolism behind that is 5, or 5. The interesting part about it is I'm sure many of the people that are on the line now have already heard the video from the Japanese proclaimed princess coming forth with information about what is going to happen in 2012. But if you're paying attention very closely, she does mention that you should watch your life every 5 years. And then if you look even closer, you'll see she's being hosted by the Pythagorean Conference, which, of course, Pythagoras was the first to introduce the symbol of the pentagram and the power of the dodecahedron. So you can see that there is an extreme connection with the number 5, and even 2012 itself equals 5 this year that we're going into. So it's very important that you understand the nature of phi and the combustion and the duality, etc., so that way you can make sure that you're spinning the right way, and I'll explain that. Basically, I began to monitor a while ago the swastika. And, of course, there's two different versions of the swastika. There's the one that was generally used by the Tibetans, which spun in one direction, or what they call Widdershins. And then there's another swastika, which was used by the Nazi Party, which was spinning in the other direction, which is called Diesel. And it's very imperative to understand that one direction means more or less the giver of life, and the other direction means the taker of life. And, of course, these two components being very important as a creator, because you must be able to bring life, sustain life, and then destroy life. And that becomes the trimurti, or the process of regeneration. So it's very imperative, again, for us to look deeper into a lot of the symbolism and to understand it from the level that it really speaks, which is there is always interlocking or spinning nature to every star. In fact, if you look into deeper ancient works, it talks about when you actually draw a star, you should always interlock it or interlace it. And this gives the individual that is viewing the star the knowledge of what direction it's actually spinning, because it spins in the direction of the interlacing. So a lot of the misconceptions about symbolism has been because of people not understanding that a symbol pointed in a certain direction means one thing, while when it's pointed in another direction, it definitely means another. And so I think that what we really need to do the most is make sure that our energy fields this year are spinning in the proper direction towards more abundant life, where the glass becomes half, what they call half full rather than half empty. So you want to have a half full approach to life, as the new term has been coined. The beginning is near, rather than the old term, the end is near. So it's very important to adapt these kind of concepts, because you're still dealing with a circle. And just because with the circle, if you do not see who draws it, then you at times have a hard time understanding what is the beginning and what is the end of it. But the beginning and the end are yet the same connection to each other. So what we'll actually see in 2012 is the end of a certain kind of cycle, mainly the stagnancy of this dimension. And for you, if you can accept that into your consciousness properly, the beginning of an abundant life that is involved with you discovering that you're everything. So there is some deeper symbolism here within nature. And if you've noticed that the tune of the occult world for the last 2 years has been to demonize much of the knowledge that has been put forth by factions such as Rosicrucians, Illuminati, and Masonry. However, we are aware that they are holding a great deal of the knowledge, and then they mix it in with what they want to mix it in with to fit the political agenda of the king and queen of this planet. But what's most interesting to discover is that nature is truly the teacher. And if you've noticed that most people have now said, if you learn from nature, then you're a Mason. But that's just not the case. We've been learning from nature since we got here and before factions such as Masonry existed. So the reality of our nature shows us that the sun comes out of the womb, or out of the east. And the east is actually termed at times the beast. And the reason this is the term is because the beast, or the matter, or the material of this planet, is what is used to shape and mold our reality. And so the beast, or also the breast, if you notice, you put one more R on that word, it gives you the word breast, which of course is where we receive much of our suckle as children. So the symbolism that happens every day is the sun rises out of the womb of the universe. And then it goes on its procession, just like you came forth from your mother's womb, and then you went on your procession through your experience on Earth, or your 12 zodiacs that you go through, and then you set to rise again. So there is a nature to us that breathes in and breathes out. So there is not one particular pole that we should be in. And as we talk about, you should remain with a clear face or neutral, only acting on things as they act upon you to show it a mirror of itself. And if it's in wholeness, then it will greet you. And if it's not, then it will run, because oftentimes many beings that are still in duality and conflict are scared of seeing themselves. And that's exactly what we're experiencing with the reality. As we've been discovering more of ourselves, it's important to realize that we're inside of the universe. So just like you would see a cell that goes through mitosis and begins to split into several different forms, it's still inside of one cell. And so that is what we have here to realize in the universe, is how we're connected with everything, and we do that through experience. So what the 2012 show is really going to be about, it's going to be about what I call lifestyle programming, which means that the lifestyle that we have to live every day, such as how to raise your children, whether you should circumcise them or not, what you should teach them, what you should eat in a GMO reality, things, if Earth Kundalini is going to awaken, what will happen, the practical life, what even you should brush your teeth with, will all be laid out so that the individual can see what the options are for themselves, and then have a really good opportunity to choose what they want to have within their life. The last thing that I'm going to talk about here before I bring some of my panel members on is I want to talk about vehicles, because I discovered something very important about how you look at life to understand what is really going on the higher levels. And they always talk about that the higher levels there's an above nature to the higher levels that's very similar to the below nature, or the world that we live in. You just have to know how it connects. And so what I discovered is that what is closest to us is our closest spiritual connection, and everything kind of ensues from there, and I'll explain. Our first vehicle, of course, is our body. Our body allows us to actually traverse this dimension. So in essence, when many people say, I am not the body, they still should consider that they're in the body. The body is more or less, as we already figured out, it's a composition of different kinds of animals and DNA and different things that exist in this planet. But it has become a close friend to us, so close that our spirit has melded itself to our body. So it's important to realize that the first thing that you really chose to quote-unquote care about is your body, because it's the closest to you. And then all other things, such as your mother and father and even children and wives, ensue from there. So let's just take the body first and understand that as the vehicle. So what was the next vehicle that man and woman chose to use in history to get them to another level of understanding, or another level of experience within the reality, faster travel? And we can definitely say that that was the horse. And this is how you'll understand what the relationships are with the things that people worship here on the planet, and how that all plays out. Because the horse was such a strong component to the transfer of our reality. It's way before cowboys. It's all the way back in the times where they would have to ride chariots and have to go into battle and have to carry large loads. So the horse was a huge component then. And if you notice, in Egyptology, the original sun god that they were worshiping went by the term Horus. And many people think that the word Horus, H-O-R-U-S, and the word horse, H-O-R-S-E, are different things. But in fact, they're not. Because the symbolism has been hidden that the horse was really what was being worshipped. It was a horse-faced god as the messenger. And this later on transferred to Anubis, who is also Hermes, which is the dog-faced god. But this was because the dog became a major component of mankind and woman's existence on this planet, because in many cases there were different kind of animals and different kinds that were, what I would say, they were very, they caused men and women to be very fearful, especially during nighttime. And so the dogs were used to hunt and to protect people during nighttime. And this will actually we'll get into later on, especially when we talk about what was brought across in regards to these 3 days of darkness that are supposed to take place on Earth. What I will say is that if you ever get heads up about anything that is supposed to take place, you always have time to prepare yourself. And as human beings, we can be prepared for anything as long as we start in enough time and we take it serious enough. So we'll move right along, and so now you're beginning to see why the dog and God are so close together, because the dog became the messenger. Just like if God is man, and if God is man and then the dog is man's best friend, this makes the dog man's messenger. So now we fast forward here into the future. And of course, the dogs and the horses are not as primary as what we used to use before. But we've now moved on to cars. And many people think that cars have nothing organic about them and they're not real. But I'm here to tell you that all metal, especially if you understand alchemy, all metal carries a frequency, and even plastic is made of atoms. So to assume that things are not real is incorrect. But there's a lot more symbolism behind the car, which is an anagram for the word ark, than you think. Because on the higher levels, arks are used as transportation devices or transportation vehicles for the higher beings. So how that passes down to us, the children, is we get these cars, these physical cars. But how it works on a higher level is they have arks or ships that they use to travel around with. And that's why arks became, at a certain point, the center point to worship. If you notice that the entire Bible is constructed in the Old Testament as the Ark of the Covenant being the super weapon or vehicle for the God. So then we even move forward because, of course, it didn't end with arks. And we go now and we're into planes. And of course, planes are the exact symbolism of birds. But another person may say, well, how does that really connect? How do birds connect with our vehicles? And it absolutely does. Because if you notice within the occult, you see many people use birds such as owls, eagles, and doves to give messages to other people, and even to using these birds to take messages to other places. So I'm just going to give you that because that'll allow you to kind of sync up some other things that are going on in the reality, because of course there's more vehicles, there's trains, there's different things of that nature. But what it'll allow you to do is watch the actual cycle of the reality and then understand exactly what's going to happen next based on the kind of vehicle that we'll be in. And of course, we're going now into an age where we're going to be using our ethereal vehicle a lot more. So the age that we're going into is 100% the age of ether. It is the time in which humanity discovers that they do have another vehicle that they can access that is far more superior than the one that they are currently using now, because the speed of thought is even faster than the speed of light. And we know that because if you send something to Mars at the speed of light, it takes a certain period of time. If you send it through thought, it arrives immediately as soon as the thought is conceived. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some of the members of the panel now, and this is going to be a permanent panel as we get more into working with each other. I'm going to bring Nemo online, and I'm also going to bring Wes and Crystal online. And what we're going to do today is we're going to present some general questions, and then we're going to answer those questions, and we're going to give you an opportunity to call in and actually get out what you think is going to happen in 2012, and we're going to talk about that. So if you could just give me a quick moment, what I'll do is I'll bring some of my guests onto the show, and so just hold on for a brief moment for me. Okay, we're forward, and we do have panel member Nemo on the line, and I also have Wes and Crystal who are clearing up their line. They have just a little bit of background noise that they're clearing up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the pace for this, and I'm going to talk about exactly what I think is going to happen in 2012 and what we need to do. And then we're going to hear from Nima and Wes and Crystal, and then they're going to give their own input. So what I think is going to happen here, and I don't want to use the term no in this case. And the reason is because 2012 is a complete manifestation field. You actually have the opportunity to really manifest anything that you want. And so it's very important here again, not to accept anyone's predictions, but to get like a general idea of what you could really expect or gain from the 2012. And so what I see, of course, is the field of manifestation, but I also see that many people are going to come forward with information and with knowledge about things that we've never heard of. And because all this information is going to come all at once, everyone feels like it's necessary to disclose, then it's going to cause, certain levels of confusion and also certain levels of comfort. So it's also important to see that in our reality, if we're ever given a deadline or timeline, if you've noticed that it's almost like the world is waking up now. It's almost as if we were never alive up until this point, because all of a sudden, all these valuable things to know have come to the forefront. And so what actually happens with us at this point is we get an opportunity to look into what people are saying that have never talked about what they have been involved in before, as they feel the conviction towards the end of the year to get themselves right. I'm going to tell you exactly how this is going to begin to play out on a psychological level. When most people feel like that it's now time to get themselves together, this is very simple to understand. It's almost like your parents. When your parents are coming home and they've been gone for a while, and you've been maybe throwing a huge party and tons of friends, and then you figure out, hey, mom and dad are coming back. And what you do is you start cleaning up the place. And then when they arrive, you just act like there's nothing that's been going on with you. This is common behavior with humanity, because humanity is still in a very childlike state in sense to many of the more graduated beings. But again, the childlike state is not really a negative thing. As we talk about, you always want to be childlike, just not childish. And so what happens for us this year is that people will start to feel like this is the year that they need to come forward with anything that they've been holding and to get themselves together at the last moment. So this is basically like the person who's the last one to leave the party. It's almost like with the Noah and the Ark story. There were some that were going to wait until the day that the Ark was going to shut the door to get in there. And so there's an idea like that permeates our reality, that we never really have to pay attention to something until it's upon us. And now it's actually upon us. And so what I see happening personally in the reality is I see people coming together from a level where more people will start to develop a consciousness or partialness towards spirituality, up until the point where you can literally go to your next door neighbor and pick up some Coca-Cola, because it will become just that common. And a couple people that I had this conversation with asked me then, what did I expect to happen from religious people who were involved in Islam and involved in Christianity, etc. What did I expect to happen from them? And I came up with this prediction. Generally, if you read the Quran and if you read the Bible and these books very heavily, it talks about how we're connected, but it also adds so much other stuff to that some people, if they have more of a benefit in doing something else, such as terrorizing other religious people, etc., then they'll do that because there's more of a benefit for them in doing that, even monetary at times. However, if they ever decided at one point that they would do exactly what their religion tells them to do, which is even what I did when I was involved in Christianity and Islam, and that's also what got me to this level, because it encourages you to progress and to even go beyond it. It says these things and more you can do. And so what ends up happening with my connection in spirituality is it led me to understanding that people weren't even practicing their religions the way that the books actually dictated. But what you will still see, because the thoughts and the ideas can somewhat be limited and stagnated by the masses of individuals that are in it at one time, meaning that sometimes your progress can be held up by waiting for other people's progress. What will happen is that the promise that was given to these individuals that are religious will be fulfilled. But it may come as a surprise to them that that promise was the exact same promise that they're experiencing now, meaning that the ultimate level of Islam is to bask in the glow of the God and to basically be caught up into the garden, Gan Eden, and to begin to basically be there with the higher beings and the prophets. Now, here's what's interesting, because, of course, Christianity has the same story because they're all Abrahamic traditions. But what about what they're explaining is not here on earth? The glow of the God, since what they're worshiping is the sun god, is in our sky every day. And we are allowed to bask in the glow of this sun. It does a lot. And so the connections that we've already maintained, even the Quran goes forward and says you will have damsels with compatible damsels with beautiful eyes, chaste, and ready to receive the guided. So this kind of talk is what, of course, encourages people to get involved in religion, but to make it very simple and to remove all the fluff, it just simply says that you will be in a place that if you allow yourself to become balanced, then you will meet the individual that you are perfectly calibrated for. And so these are the type of things that I'm talking about that we'll be doing this year. It's beginning to clarify a lot of what has been brought forth in the mystic tradition and to remove a lot of the hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, fear, and paranoia off of it so that we can see what it truly is. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to begin with a panel member, Nima. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself and just to give you some of those words of encouragement about what he's discovered in regards to studying the esoteric knowledge. Nima, are you with us?
Hold on. Does the sound okay?
Yeah, the sound's okay. It should clear up just a little bit. It's popping a little bit, but it should work perfectly. Now, actually, let me put a set of headphones on really briefly so that way that we don't get a nasty little echo here. And you can actually go ahead.
As well. Okay, yeah, it's interesting. Thank you, first of all, for expounding the way you have with the introduction. There is a lot going on if people haven't really been paying attention to, I would say, the last 10 years. I'm 32 years old, just trailing you a little bit. But these last 10 years, there's been a huge condensing of not only time, but information. And we're seeing that come out more and more, and that's why sites like the Resistance have been put together. So I think the bigger question, I mean, we're going to see these chaoses and the disorder come about, just as it has been with the reordering of everything. You know, that's because the foundations that a lot have been built on have been false foundations, and we're seeing that come out. We're seeing what real is, and we're actually deciding what that's going to be. And so the bigger question or the bigger answer to fulfill within yourself is what's happening with you, like what's happening with me. And that's going to give you a better baseline or a better way to point your compass on where you want to go. And it's very important to actually keep yourself on course, but like Sevan said earlier, and actually somebody told me yesterday, is it's certain things that sit with you and certain things that impact you, and those are the things to pay attention to. When you could spread yourself a little bit, it's great to help others. And I'm not telling people to play from that course, but when things hit you a certain way, it's something for you to use to balance yourself, because these are the things that make us unbalanced, whether they're external situations in life that manifest in the body and turn into stagnation or disease. These are the things that we have a real good opportunity right now to really deal with. Are people offering themselves, the plants, the spirits of the out, in like tenfold within the last, a few years to offer themselves to people. It's just about maintaining that relationship with the forces of, I guess, what you would call nature, even it be the sun, and there's tons and tons of allegories about the sun being external and the earth being here where we're at, and we're beginning to realize that we're able to traverse both of them only if we choose to commune with those entities that we are also part of. And it's funny how Sevan brought up that we're starting to see some of this knowledge come out, more common knowledge, like you can go to your neighbor's house to pick up some gotu kola. I went to a friend of mine's house, and they had things like a leaf complex. They had like things that you would never see in a normal person's medicine chest, and it was all plant-based. It was all very natural, very much absorbable for the human-plant interaction that's keeping us away from GMOs and the toxicity. So these are things that we're going to see. The body was mentioned as a vehicle, but one thing with that also becoming ethereal is, and if you look at anything from the birth certificates to the terminology that's been used in law, we're seafaring, we're cosmofaring, and we have these ships. And so not only is it your body, when you unite with your polar opposite, your mirror, with your man or woman relationships, you have also those shifts, and those are going to be something that you can navigate with, because a relationship, I'm sure the other panel members will tell you, you create that together. And it's so, if you're in a relationship with somebody else, you can create many, many relationships, and you decide how you those ships to be driven. A really big to look at. As far as like these 3 days of darkness, you have people talking about we're going into the fifth sun. You have cultures that tell us that we're going into the sixth world. We've seen the evidence of phi, as stated earlier, and it's something to pay attention to. But if you that threshold physically, it shouldn't be something to be feared. It's something that when that comes, deal with it as it comes. You cross that bridge when you get there. You cross that water when you get to that bridge. But for now, the best thing is exactly what the Japanese woman was stating earlier on the video, is just prepare yourself, prepare your body, prepare your mind, and anything that comes in, it's very important not to hold on to it as far as negative emotions, and even things that get you quote-unquote too high, like these positive emotions. Experience it for what it is, but also let that go. That way you can remain present. And that's the biggest thing that we're being taught, I think, having the patience to not have what we first deemed a lot of these things are being eroded. And I think a lot of our practice will be a lot more commonplace with the naturopathics. Even things that are very much thinner that you would normally say that are on the fringe, the breathing techniques, and even thinner than that, the mind techniques, as Sevan spoke, the speed of thought, actually came out in a fixity. They were trying to find out what was faster, the speed of light, the speed of thought. And I think it's Michio Kaku even stated that the speed of thought was faster, especially if it's random, something already known. So we've been working with that, with Thoth, Mercury, and thought. The closer we get into the sun, and the closer we realize, or the sooner we realize that's also a part of us, we'll be able to move faster in the speed that we need to move. But it really isn't about fast or slow. It's about being where you're at and being okay with that, and all these things that come through or that you project out there, to be very careful on what that really is and how you're really responding to that. And that's what I see. It's just more these things that are throwing us off balance, or have been throwing us off balance the last few years, to be a little more perceptive of it, a little more aware of it, that way to not be swayed so much. And that's maybe because the prophets go on and on about, and there's so many symbols the way they're explained. But I think the big thing is to really feel within yourself, is that really going on with you? Is that really going on with, because it's important that you carry yourself to this or into it, or however you want to look at it, you know, to stay balanced, you know, to continue to navigate. And that's when I think the vehicle really begins to open up and evolve. And that's what I see coming up. I mean, we've been preparing and chipping away at all this, and it's just more, the more we get into it, the more we get into ourselves, I find, and that's where it's going to come. You know, and then when you do find those moments of balance and you know, happiness, share it. You know, give it. You get to keep things that you give. You know, that you want to, you know, hold on to everything, but it's good to spread those like gems that you know every day, or these things that are passed on. You know, tell somebody else. Tell somebody about the show. If you learn a new method through earth, through travel, breathing, you know, pass that on. You never know who it's going to affect on the way up or the way down or the way, you know, it's all, that's the big thing that's coming out too. Like, information is now radiated, you know, to be applicable. And those are, that's like my 5 cents on the book coming up here and experiencing.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, actually, your line, it's clear enough, but it is kind of like chopping just a little bit. I know that some people can hear it, and that may be because if you have any extra windows open, it may be affecting the bandwidth. But overall, or you may need to like use a headset or something. But it's clear enough, so we at least did get the whole conversation. It's just kind of popping a little bit for those that were texting in the box and saying that it was just a little bit shaky, But yeah, it's exactly that. I think that there's a lot of harmony that is involved with this year in regards to us connecting. And of course, we have the job as bridge builders. And one of the main things that I discovered is like, what is the real active position here in the reality? And that active position has become bridge building. It's actually being able to connect with others that other people are leaving behind, like, you know, they'll never get it, they're sheeple, blah, blah, blah. But we're still all one family because we're all on the same planet. And that is something that I've come to discover now as being one of the most powerful things, is to, instead of continuously taking away from yourself and separating from different things or different concepts, but to actually take it all in, not from a level of you have to go in and practice and do all these different things, but to take it all in through a level of acceptance as a huge lesson and an adventure that at least there's a higher consciousness that has set this up for us to benefit. There is no death for us, so there should not be any fear. Like, some people are now in some type of fear of being eaten, but still never realizing again that you're actually inside of the universe. So in that tense, we've already been eaten, or as I call it, ate. And if you even look at the number 8, it's heavily symbolic to the planet Venus and its regeneration cycles, or what they just call infinity. And so,
right.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, right, or they don't realize that they are actually eating themselves, you know?
Right. I guess that's the old Ouroboros symbolism coming to full fruition, which is how we go through these cycles. But each time we gain rings. And the other thing is that I want to let people know is that there are circles and there are straight lines. And that's why the number 10 becomes the number of completion for many different spiritual systems, because the 1 is a straight line and the 0 is, of course, the curve. And with those two together, it becomes complete. So we see our society start in 0, which we know nothing about. And that's why there's no real recollection most of the time of what happened before we came out of the womb. And then we start 1 and we start the whole process of the archetypes of the numbers. But when we finally reach 10, which of course this year, all 5, 10, 15s, 20s are just stronger turns around the same circle. And so what happens with 2012 is that we actually reach a 10 cycle, if we want to use that term, which means is that we finally connect or unite with that other part of us for the completion of having both of the integers necessary to traverse the universe properly. So if people wanted to kind of swallow all of the things that they've have experienced here on Earth, they can simply say, well, yeah, I went to Earth, I learned the curve and the straight line. That's where I got my degree from. And then now I'm here in the universe realizing and expanding more of my position, because there's a lot of conversations that we're going to start having, especially within these next few shows, about what is taking place in the altered state of consciousness, because we've been getting a lot of communication in the higher levels of meditation and the third eye experiences, and you get a lot of visual of beings such as Buddhas giving you dodecahedrons or giving you shapes to comprehend, to understand that we're all connected, and that our whole experience here is to understand that. And then there was even more information revealed about what really happens when you die as a person that is ready to progress into a higher state of your existence. And it's you still begin to do service. I mean, you still are doing service for the world. It's just you are somewhat invisible, except for to the individuals that can see that anyway, but you're somewhat invisible to this reality because you've moved into another frequency and spectrum. And then, of course, Earth will allow itself to get prepared to receive the next level of adherence of this beautiful university or this universe. And so it becomes, for me, a very interesting time. And I know a lot of people are very excited about this year as being a big change. And the reality of this show is we can make that change. That's what we're really here for. We're here so that you can actually grab the reins of this whole thing and understand how to guide or pilot your ship to higher expanses or just wherever you want. There's no such thing as a higher and a lower in this tense. And that's also what the next dimension really presents for us is no good, no evil, or what I just call no two coils. And this comes from what was discovered with Nikola Tesla's free energy design, which is that he was using one coil over the standard dual coil transformer that we use. And this has a lot to do with also how things that are collected work better than things that are divided, even if they're powering each other like pistons by one pushing the other down so the other one can push the other one up. And that's also exactly how our reality is designed on the dual version of the universe. And in regards to accepting certain things that individuals are saying, it becomes, like you were saying, Nima, if it resonates with you, because that resonance and that frequency and that harmony is going to be the most important thing, because it will actually guide you to the people that you need around through a level of magnetism, because light frequency definitely increases the spectrum with other light frequencies. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring Crystalline to the conversation, and we're going to be talking to her a lot more on a few shows, because we're going to talk about raising kids this year, because a lot of people are actually having children this year, and they have questions about names, they have questions about circumcision, again, they have questions about many different things like spiritual preferences, how free they should let them think, and of course there's a concern of enlightened parents making their children making them do so many things that are related to understanding and developing the self that it messes with their immunity to the reality. So there's like a fine-tuning that necessarily has to be done in order for the child not to grow up in a world where it feels completely alienated and not able to handle itself, but actually goes forth in the world, continuing the mission of the parents as a leader and a bridge builder. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this line one more time. I do believe actually there was a rebooting process that went on here for a moment. And let me just go ahead and check in the chat box. Nima, if you wanted to go ahead and say a couple things, then you can definitely feel free to do so. And I'm going to see if I can track down Crystal.
All right. One thing to also be aware of, you said something about like cheapo the masses, and one thing people need to realize is that most of the people here have been taken out of the reality, experienced some kind of reality, or jerked out of the reality in some way, shape, or form. And so the people here know, they have that knowing of non-dual dimension in a way. And a lot of the people who aren't privy to this kind of information, it's not for us to judge them or anything like that, and most people know that here. You never know what piece of information will get them or will kind of catch them onto something that helps them along the line. And you just never know the kind of information that will hook somebody, and not necessarily that you're trying to hook them, but I heard the term school, and so everybody has their own way of interpreting information. Somebody could be into the football game, every Sunday, but they may be hooked in politics and start to realize how some of these politics are falling apart in the United States, and usually that leads to fear-mongering and all that, but sometimes it's one piece of information that grabs somebody and they begin to get into this information, and it's not that this information is sacred or scared or anything like that. It's just, it's almost the precursor to what begins to form these sticker rounds, like your thought was, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying it's kind of interesting that you brought that up because it kind of runs congruent with what the person is talking about here in the chat box. There's a couple questions in here, and some people are asking about Draconian soul traps, and there's another person asking about some other things. So let's take a couple of these questions, and some people ask about what is on the fifth dimension. So that's also what we always encourage people to do, is ask these questions so that the answers can actually get out. And Nima, also, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with your line and why it's popping. Do you may want to try to reboot the computer, maybe? Because I know that you have a very powerful message, and it's just important for people to hear that message clearly. And just for some reason, it's given a little bit of a static, or actually a lot of static, and it just won't come through clear. So
okay, does this sound a bit better? I had a mic in.
Actually, it actually sounds a little bit worse because now we have somewhat of like a reverb. So let me just.
What I'll do is
okay, go ahead.
I'll reboot and then I'll reboot and I'll call back in.
Okay, just reboot and call back in, and then if it still happens, we'll just deal with it like it is. But it may just be a reboot. And then while Nima's rebooting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer some of these questions. I'm going to talk about the Draconians, because the reality is that there's actually been an entire wave for the last 3 or 4 years, of course, in regards to the reptilians and the discovery of another species that lives here on the planet, and whether or not that species is setting up things for us and doing things to us in, as this question is asking, setting up a soul trap. So let's talk about Draconians first. The Draconians from the Draconian constellation, you can get more closer to by understanding the term Draconian law, because that is the actual real word that is coined within our reality. That's not just something some conspiracy theorists made up. And so what Draconians are about is they're about a hierarchy. And if you want to see Draconians, then you simply look at the military. It's completely a Draconian thing. And so what the Draconians have been left in charge of doing is actually perpetuating environments to come to the point that they're in now. It's like the dirty job, but someone has to do it. It's the point where the people get so fed up of exactly what's going on in their reality that it forces them to wake up. And so the Draconian system, as I believe was talked about on a couple other shows, is the symbolism of the actual Ouroboros, or the cycle of the reality itself, and how we go through different states and then we come to a final state, and then either we get completion or we get looped again and come back around. So what a Draconian soul trap is, because the Draconians are they're more from the ancient lines, or what we call predators, the predators, because the conscious state of their existence is still evolving. Because the humans, as they are more communal beings, they're closer to being universal, while the Draconians are more cliquish and have a couple of more rings to gain before they start to understand the universal concept in general. So what a Draconian really is not so much as a bipedal hybrid lizard-faced being that lives inside the earth, but an actual person that is in the psi body, meaning that they will look the same as you, but their spirit is still stagnant somewhat, and the lower chakra centers are blocked. And why we're talking about the higher chakra centers are blocked, and generally they only use one chakra center. And why we're talking about that It's important to also know that the third eye is not the only chakra center. And in utilization of the third eye, what the person is capable of doing is they're able to see the visual spectrum and basically see everything that exists here through the cornucopic field. But there's other chakras that when they activate, they allow you to tap into other states of your being. It doesn't even have to do with something necessarily visual. And this is why you know that, again, for humanity, the glass is half full in regards to there's so much stuff that we still have yet to experience, because we're actually now talking about the third eye. But the other chakras are also accompanied with unique abilities. And we've definitely pinpointed certain things that directly affect the third eye. And what we'll find in the knowledge, and that's also why I'm excited about 2012, is we're very excited about the knowledge that is going to be released, because we have so much of it already collected. Approximately, I have about 15,000 books of information within this brain. It allows me to be able to decipher what is coming through and then predict exactly what is going to happen based on all the knowledge and experience that we've gained within the Resistance Network. So everyone should keep in mind that the Resistance is real time, meaning that we're actually going through this process together. We have adepts, we have neophytes, we have seekers, and even just observers. And what we do is we all put our information together, and we make sure that we just do each other the justice of it not being disinformation, and then we share it and bring it. So that way it allows us to be able to become more cohesive with what we're experiencing. Before we get more into the show, because I'm going to bring some panel hosts back on again, is I wanted to talk about just a couple of announcements that are taking place with the Resistance. The library is actually nearing completion, meaning that the actual master library is at the level where you can now go in there and download all the books. For those who've been in there, they've noticed that you've only been able to just view the books. And I did that for several different reasons, mainly, different reasons with copyright. But since we're in 2012, I see no reason to continue to uphold such things, and I need to definitely get this information to people as fast as possible. So I encourage you to take a look at the Resistance Master Library again. It is available at the Master Library tab on the Resistance site. So I encourage you to take a look at that again and to go through there, because there's a lot of works that were never posted to Scribe and have never really been sourced on the internet, and they're all there. Some of Manly P. Hall's private journals, etc. Also, I wanted to thank Michael and Joseph for that, because they've been working around the clock. I think Mike put in about 5 hours on the library yesterday straight. And so this is all happening on the collaboration of the individuals that are within the network, also desiring that other people can have the opportunity to access this stuff. And I did want to let everyone know the Resistance positions has been sent out. So we have sent out an email to everyone asking if you would like to get involved. We've listed certain things that people can get involved in, and we encourage you to do so. And we're also looking for a person right now that's capable of going into that Flickr library and start tagging those photos properly so that people can access what they're looking for. Also, I want to let everyone know that the Skype chat, or the life coaching question and answer session, which allows you to basically have not just a monologue like what we're experiencing now and where you can call in but we're still on air, but more of a lax conversation with other Resistance members and also myself on Skype through conference. And that takes place every Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and I believe that's 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. So that's something that you can definitely get into your system. Wednesday is generally what they call hump day. So it's the day that you kind of feel like you either need an extra boost or that things are, kind of declining for the week. So it's important to kind of infuse your system with a great level of esoteric knowledge. I'm going to do this now since we do have a caller that's in on the line. I'm going to actually take that caller. It's Divine Transformation, also Resistance member. Divine, you're on the air with the 2012 show. How are you doing?
Hi, Sevan. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. Actually, is this Crystal?
It is.
Okay. So you called in through the other line. All right, awesome. So I'm glad that we finally got you on the line here. And we're definitely looking forward to you sharing some things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of kick back, and I would just like you to tell us what you've been experiencing over there and how things have been going with your progress through the spirituality.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah. Firstly, my name's Crystal. I'm better known as Whole Transformation on the Code. I've been experiencing a lot of high energy, especially in the last couple of days. Like, it's just been hard to sleep. I just can't explain it. You know, I thought that 2012 was kind of going to be an easing in process, but I've quickly found out that all bets are off this year, and it's just things are moving at a very rapid rate. So, you know, you just need to be ready for it. I think that this year, for those of us who have done our homework and are spiritually prepared, that we can expect just a lot of changes, rapid expansion, and a lot of transformation mentally, physically, and spiritually. So it's been pretty incredible so far, and I just can't wait to see where the rest of the year takes us.
Awesome. How's Wes doing over there?
He's doing really good, too. Like, it's funny because the other day, Wes and I have been vegetarian for about 6 months, and it's been going really well. And I was just talking to a friend about, you know, the benefits of getting off of meat and how it makes you more energetic and you just, you know, feel better, you sleep easier. And she was like, oh, yeah, that's really cool. And I'm just like, yeah, you know, I've been doing the vegetarian thing, but the eggs and cheese, like, that's the only thing that saves the vegetarian lifestyle. I don't see us getting off of that anytime soon and going vegan or anything like that. And then literally within 24 hours, I saw some videos online about raw food. And I'd seen them before last year, and I guess it just wasn't time to sync up with them. And when I saw them, my body was just like, yes, like this is exactly what we need to be doing right now. You need to be on raw food. Your energy is going to go through the roof, and you're just going to be able to progress that much better. So basically, the end of the month, we're going to be doing raw food, and it's just really exciting, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked. Like, this year's manifestations are being realized almost right away, I've found. If I'm thinking something, if I'm holding something in my mind, it just comes into reality, like, almost right away. It's scary. So just be aware, you know, of, like, where you're focusing your energy, where your intentions are, and that will definitely be paramount for, you know, personal development this year for sure. Because I'm sure, like, you know, there's going to be lots going on in the reality. You know, the evildoers will more than likely be coming up with all kinds of conflict to keep people, you know, distracted and in fear. So as long as we can just, you know, concentrate and get centered on what we need to do to get ourselves to that next level, then, you know, then there's no worries. You know, it's like you said at another show, a tree's a tree. If it sees a flood coming, it stays grounded, right? So that's kind of how we have to be prepared for the new year, I think. You know, there's always going to be something going on somewhere, for sure. I think this year, too, you know, we can bet on a lot more of a community-like consciousness happening around us, you know. I think you'll find people will be, you know, helping each other out a lot more on a much more of a massive scale. And, you know, you'll find yourself connecting more with like-minded individuals, basically, who might even be the missing link on your life's path.
Exactly. I mean, let's talk about those missing links because, you know, that's definitely one of the things that we need to bring up is that you can definitely see within the reality that, just as, again, another 2012 prediction, that many of the people that are running these Fortune 500 companies are actually the children of the individuals who built basically the world that we're in now, meaning that the way that the world has been industrialized and what we're experiencing with the computer and cars, and of course many people don't think that's a positive thing, but the reality is it's not something that can be turned back, so it's good to look at everything as positive if you cannot undo it. So the reality is that those people more or less sacrificed a lot of what they could obtain just to build more material physicality. And they in turn passed it to their children who are managing it. But people have to realize that the knowledge has not fallen on their ears just as the knowledge has not fallen on many of the masses, only for the simple fact that it's not something that is entertaining. People think that many of the elite's children are actually in the know and have all this knowledge and access to it, but it's not something they actually want to do, so they don't really have it. So what I see happening also this year is that many of those families and the people that are involved in those families will, because of course, not needing any money. For people who have money now, they seem to be making more money. Of course, as the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. But what happens is that they have more time to explore this internet. And then you can't help but to see the conscious movement. And I believe that's going to begin to move many of them to liquidating a lot of their assets and beginning to give that to organizations and to people, and even going out on their own missions. Like, it's very interesting to watch Live Station. There's a UN program for refugees. And I tuned into that program, and they just bring you right on the ground. I'm not too big of a fan of the UN, but they bring you right on the ground, the refugee situation, so you get an opportunity to connect. And it's important for us to understand that you don't want to become even immune to what we will call misfortune. It becomes something that you can exercise your compassion over. And so when watching this, they entered into a hut, and it was very dark and dank and filthy, and I think there was even an arm laying on the floor. And then when they pan the camera to the right, you see Angelina Jolie sitting there. And so these are individuals, like I think 4 years ago, she started this mission to better things. And many people thought she was just false and that she just was doing a publicity stunt. But here she is in places that most people won't go. And, of course, being a TV personality, you always have the opportunity to get kidnapped. And just putting in that work and actually transmuting the energy into this planet, because many people are the missing link. They've been storing up a lot of the energy, a lot of the current. And when that current begins to release, it'll actually cause a chain reaction within the reality. Like, I have very, very positive outlook for the reality because I understand that fear also has a climax. And this is something that people should really, really understand, is that emotions have a climax. Even fear has a climax. And fear's climax is just about over. And so what happens when fear climaxes and then it starts to dissipate from there is that it actually completely disappears. And how this would really manifest in our reality is that people would literally feel like they no longer had time to be afraid or an opportunity to be afraid. It's like you're only afraid based on the situation that you're presented with. And that's why the reality has been, for just in its general sense, it's very plush with how it takes care of its inhabitants. And this also creates somewhat of a fear when there is something new being introduced into the reality, and which is also what we have been experiencing for the last, I would say, maybe 80 years, is a whole new thing. And as I talked about before, the messenger or the vehicle that was being chose to use to bring consciousness changed, and we gain knowledge from that and experience from that. And so now we actually see ourselves going into the cycle of completion. So I just really wanted to say to everyone to not accept any ideas that do not harmonize with you, and don't buy into someone else's predictions that are on a negative level, because it will hinder your connection energy and your connection to others that are supposed to be taking you into the higher state of consciousness. And that's what we do for each other. And getting more into assisting people with that. Like, you have all these tools. There's the library, there's books, there's supplements, there's all these tools. But passing that information and the know-how of that to other people is the key to the entirely different form of work, or entirely different form of way to generate currency, which is when you go to an individual and you give their soul something, then the soul operates on a universal level, and that soul does know how to reciprocate, because it understands that principle. So one of the main things that we've been doing now, of course, is cultivating a lot of information and cultivating ourselves, i.e. understanding. Now what we're allowed to do is to take that understanding and actually go do something outstanding, because that's what these words really mean. It's just breathing in, breathing out, and being able to do that for others is key. So what do you think that... what would you, because we talked about the children a little bit, and we talked about how the youngest children, the ones coming now, are the oldest, because they chose to be here during this time. And I definitely glimpsed into something of a psychic network being held by children alone, meaning that the actual frequency that innocent children are on is all one frequency, and they communicate and do things within that frequency. Can you tell us any insight about what you see coming through your children that may be a hint of some type of extra assistance that we may not be aware of from a psychic level?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, just to explain, I've got an 8-year-old and I have an 8-month-old, and yeah, like these new gen kids are incredible. Like they're very emotional, you know, they're very sensitive to sound. My youngest one, Brooke, like any loud sound, she's, you know, jumping. For sure, but yeah, there's a definite twinkle in her eye. It's hard to explain. You know, my family members that hold her, they're like, wow, this is an old soul, this one. And yeah, she definitely has that look like, okay, so I'm coming around for the last time here. This is the big show. I showed up just in time, and I'm going to be teaching all y'all a few things, right? So it's pretty incredible to see that for sure. She's got an amazing connection with my older daughter, and you can definitely tell that the two of them have been doing this again and again in past lives for sure. You know, probably roles reversed. Maybe, you know, Brooke was the mom and Kennedy was the daughter. I don't know, but the two of them just get along so well. Yeah, like holding her is just like, you know, holding a lightning bolt. She definitely has that energy that's is incredible, you know. I'm actually just looking at my husband right now holding her. And yeah, like there's a very knowingness in her eyes, and almost like an ancient wisdom, if you will. So I'm pretty excited to watch her grow up and have her teach me things, because, you know, I think with the new generations coming in, you always want them to surpass, you know, the older ones. So it's a very exciting time, you know, for sure. And when she came into our lives too, like everything changed. Like, you know, 2011 was a rough year for us, and then I had her in April, on the 22nd actually, which is, funnily enough, the Resistance anniversary. And yeah, like, it was a beautiful day. It was so sunny. Like, we came home at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was just like, the day was just for us. And everything since then has just been absolutely amazing. She brought an incredible light into the house and in everyone's life. So yeah, these new kids are incredible, for sure.
Awesome. I would definitely like to encourage everyone, especially in regards to activation and energy, to understand that basically how the energy works is that once a person activates, if they come in contact with another individual, that person activates. And in experiencing that myself, and of course that's how a part of the book, the first part of the book begins with the gentleman that was in the room with me, it's always given me through this path a really high level of optimism about what exactly will take place in this reality, because it can really happen at any moment. Like if it happens at a soccer game or like the World Cup, where one person happens to activate, it's a chain reaction. And so that's why I did start to realize there's definitely a level of timing here, which I always look deeper into exploring that timing. Like, when exactly are we supposed to move? Just as we won't plant a tomato in the winter, it's important to understand when to move and when to breathe in, when to breathe out. And this is now the time for us to breathe out our personality into the reality of what we've learned. Like we talked about cycling Kundalini, many people are not aware that they're already in the higher state of consciousness of their vehicle or their system already. And they sometimes see that they compare themselves to other individuals. And this is also not a good thing to always compare yourself to other individuals in their spiritual state, because some people operate in an entirely different way and have an entirely different talent, such as Pablo is an exemplary artist. And the most I can do is draw some really nice stickmen. So the reality is that we all have these special things that we can do. And I think that's why there was a parable about talent. And what the parable went like is that there were talents given to the son or the daughter. And in going out, one chose to not use those talents, while the other one chose to use that talent, and the other one chose just to kind of save it. And what this is about when you use your first talent, when you figure out what your gift is, you get more based on how you use that one, because it's no use in giving you all of them at one time. And that's also how the chakras work. The one chakra turns on and becomes the catalyst for all the other chakras based on what you do with that chakra. So it's almost like, if you wanted to simplify it, our world actually corresponds to the dualistic plane of the chakras within the feet. And so we actually have this opportunity to realize where we're positioned, what exactly is going on because of where we're positioned, and then ride that center, which is making your legs work more, getting more grounded, once you come from the higher planes, because the higher planes have more of an airy, ethereal, non-grounded nature. So it doesn't have much that's applicable to the material plane until you complete your quest there, and then you understand exactly what the correspondences are here. And so that's really one of the main things also that you should do these days is if you know that you have a friend that is at a particular state of consciousness, there's a lot of different posts, and we're going to start putting this stuff in a very detailed order, because remember, this is preseason, so this is not like even one of our shows, and for one, even one of our main shows as far as how we generally bring the content and how we're going to bring the content this year. If you look at, actually, I was going to answer this question really quick about what's going on with the Universal Current show, because we did end at level 3 on the Universal Current, and it became only necessary at that point to be able to convey the message differently than how it had been shown, which is we have to go into physicality with the application. So if I'm talking on the phone, it's very difficult for me to even describe the master's pose over the phone. So it became necessary for us to bolt on another component such as Livestream, Ustream, so that you can see me, and then also I can share pictures of what we're discussing, because when we begin to move into the higher chakras, it's really easy to get lost. So this becomes like a trip. If you have a trip, you're taking a trip and you're going into uncharted territory and you have a guide. If the guide happens to walk too fast and lose you, then you're lost in the middle of this chakra, for better lack of words. So it does become a really deep responsibility, and I've definitely been in my life pushed more and more to just always understand the responsibility that's taken when you do decide to teach. And most of the time it's not just your decision, it's more like a collective decision. And so it also appears that this year, for many people, that is the collective decision that has been made. Also, I wanted to talk to Wes really quick, and I'm also going to bring Nima back on the line. He did get a chance to reboot, and of course you came in, so that allowed us to get some more information about exactly what's going on. I wanted to talk about Wes because he's definitely in always doing stuff and working in Canada to raise consciousness. And I just wanted to give, just as a beautiful soul, I wanted to give him an opportunity to say something and just to let us know that, that he's alive over there.
Hey, Sevan.
Hey.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, man, I'm doing absolutely well, man. Absolutely well. Today is just one of those days.
That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear. Well, I was listening in a little bit, it's just been it's funny, we feel subtle changes here and there, but as soon as 2012 started, it was almost just like, I don't know, it just kicked off with such an intense amount of energy, and I just felt really good for the direction things are going. I think that, everybody that kind of starts off on a certain level kind of has, when they wake up, a certain amount of fear, like, uncertainty or what's going on, and but just, that just kind of really reciprocated into quite a positive, really, really feel good direction as January started. So I'm pretty stoked. But as far as family is concerned, a lot of family members or friends who were never very receptive to a lot of the ideas that we were talking about in terms of awakening. I know how hard it can be to try and, talk to family and raise your kids at the same time. And sometimes you just have to take the position of, just going it alone and really kind of leading by example to be that parent for your kids. Because I think that, as far as I've seen with my family, when we talk about a lot of these things, and obviously we're, saying things that are relevant to their age. We're obviously not going to say too much
right.
to create a shock value. It's like, yeah, that's the moon, and the cow jumps over it. If they're a certain age, but I think that it's all relevant to their age, and as far as keeping that in mind, I think that on a kind of a special level, the kids are. They're receptive to what you're saying. It's like when I think of myself as a kid, or, and I maybe, retroactively go back and think about some of the things that I'm saying now, I'd just be like, Dad, you're crazy. Some of the things you're talking about, but
and it's important to do that introspection, like just to really kind of flip it around. And it's good that you bring that up, because that's also really the 2012 show is just going to be about really getting in there into lifestyle. And I just wanted to just make that note again, because even what you're sharing right now is just such precious information, especially for if we're all just going. It's like someone makes a hole and then we all go through it and it keeps clearing itself. And it's also very important for us to begin to work with curriculums for age groups of different things to expose the children to, such as the crystals, such as the geometry, the more advanced geometry, and the exposure to the planetary elements, etc. And that's what I really also see with the graduation of the society. And I really would tell people that the society that we're speaking of now is already going on. And I have this new it's not a joke, but it kind of comes across like a joke to me, but I have a saying, and I just say, you know what happens when you die? You wake up and you tell the person next to you, hey, I just had a dream that I died. The transfer in itself is so fluid into the world. It's just about making sure that we understand where we're going and how to guide that. And I believe that if out of any lesson, it's how to go into the next existence with the realization that we're here. Would you agree? That we were here,
We were here, and we're
always here in some sense.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. It's like we're remembering, and it's all coming back. It's like when I talk to the kids, like I was saying before, and talking to them about this information, it's almost like they're just so very receptive. Like, I've been waiting for this information. And it becomes so readily available to them, and how they receive it, and I think that, I guess one of the messages I would say is that, when you're a parent and you might have the thought like, well, how do I even come across and say these things and talk to my kids about this? But you're going to find that, surprisingly, that it's just going to be effortless, because the kids are going to be just so receptive to that information, like they want to hear it and they want to hear more about it. And I think that, that's the difference, because the last generation would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't want to hear about that, or Dad or Mom's crazy or whatever. But it's the truth is the truth. And the kids today want to know that truth. That's why they've come in, and that's why they're here. So, I've found that even sometimes I can listen to myself and it sounds a little bit crazy. They don't think so. And they just really, they really hear it and take it in and take it in stride. So, and I just think that is just kind of fractal of, the bigger picture of the unity consciousness taking a direction that we all want to see and want it to go. We all want that direction to go to. The generation after that is going to be even more receptive, and it's kind of like an unstoppable force now.
Exactly, and you feel it too, because it's something that you started. It doesn't have the turn back option installed. No. I don't have to be political and about it and try to spin doctor it or say it in some feel good fashion. It's just verbatim. The raw truth is all it needs, and they respect it and they're receptive to it. Exactly. We have one caller that's calling in from a 202 area code. We're going to go ahead and give that caller an opportunity to come on the line. Caller, you're actually on air with the 2012 show, the 2012 experts. How can we assist you?
Thank you very much, as always. I really just wanted to share an experience as I hear you talk about the children. I work in a restaurant as a maitre d', and I think last week a couple came in. They were from the UK and they had two young girls. So we sat the girls down and the parents had drinks, and I gave them kids menus. So the one girl flipped it over, and you had 4 colors to color the pack of crayons. So the one girl flipped it over. Her name is Olivia, and she drew a 13-petal the acorn. When you look at the acorn, because I actually was walking to work and I picked up the acorn that next day and looked at it. she drew 13 petals in different colors and just thanked the server for the tea that she received, Olivia and Allison. And I still have it because it's the energy that came from that, it washed over me. I looked at it and I was speechless, and I looked around as everybody just went about their jobs, and I stashed it away. I said, nobody throws this away. We keep this. And it impacted me so deeply because I counted. First I looked at it, I said, this is amazing. Look at the color. It's just like when you look at the spectrum of the sun, you see the ray of colors in perfect order. And then I said, okay, I'm going to count the petals just to see. I'm thinking about 7, I said, okay, I'm going to count the petals. And it was 13. I said, okay, thank you. You know what I mean? And, I got on the bus the other day, and it was a little one. He was in nursery school. He had on sunglasses. He's walking down the aisle. They were going on a field trip. He's walking down the aisle, and everybody on the bus just looked like, what's this, young? He was cool, had his hands in his pocket. Excuse me. Maybe 3 years old, so I just wanted to share that energy.
Man, that's just awesome to share that. I do want to just give people a little insight on the number 13, so they're aware. So they're like, well, what does the 13 mean? Well, there's 12 zodiac signs, but of course there's now been introduced a 13th, but this is actually ancient knowledge that just as you see Christ and his 12 disciples, there is one that they say one ruling over 12, but in reality it's one hidden zodiac sign, and that's why towards the completion of this cycle there was a revelation about some type of, again, serpent species, because the whole Nehushtan and Jesus and all of that, and even the Old Testament gods that you check in Judaism are related to Draconian families, Aldebar and Rigel, etc. But the interesting part is that it's a big number of completion because it means immortality, because it contains no tooth. In theory, there are only 3 numbers because all numbers can be generated from them, but really it's only 3 symbols, and all symbols can be generated from them. And that 1, 2, 3, we'll find that the number 13 is missing the 2, which means it's missing its dual component, meaning it's no longer in conflict. So it actually discovers what is beyond all of this. And that's why there's a taboo on this dimension because of the number 13, because the dimension or matrix has been programmed to not allow a person to see the gate directly. And then through life, as they begin to experience life, they begin to understand what exactly the purpose of this dimension is. And if they've done that, then it clicks something in their mind and they realize that what generally is being told to you to don't do, stay away from, you may have to look into it because that creates fear. And so in many cases, they talk about how even higher beings were told to not come here to Earth. And they came anyway. I would suppose that if you told any type of being that was fearless not to do something, you would then create a fear for it if it didn't just go and do it. And so it's very funny how the universe works, and I think that that's what we're going to see more of as we discover that the previous way that we were thinking was not connected. And in the way that we are now thinking is connected. So it's 2 totally different things, like a switch on and a switch off. And when that switch current comes on, then we get a chance to see all these beautiful things and understand the true meaning of them, such as your story now. I mean, I was also moved in just hearing it to understand that, they look for the saviors, but the children are the saviors, obviously. And then so what we're responsible for doing is very similar to what my conversation with the cactus was like, which was the cactus said, I don't know what's going on. You guys were supposed to take care of us. We're still a little bit earlier in our evolutionary system, and so we need that extra help so that we can grow up. And it's interesting because many of us are getting our footing now, like a lot of us are getting our spiritual footing, and we go forth now and actually do things in the reality that are really getting done. And that's why I always say, like at the end of the Universal Mother video, it's not something we're planning on doing. It's actually something that's already been done. We've been putting forth that effort. And so we want to encourage everyone to come in and share that. Also, we do have another caller, brother. If you didn't have any more to say, I do want to thank you for definitely calling in and sharing that with us. And I'm just going to, because we only have 4 more minutes in the conversation.
Absolutely.
But I do definitely, like I said, thank you for calling in. Caller from the 704 area code, you're on the universal current. Actually, and you're on the universal current in the 2012 show, actually. But the current is universal. Go ahead.
Hey, sir, this is Marco, man. I was calling. First of all, I want to just congratulate you for everything that you're doing. I really appreciate someone that has the same reflection as I do. and most of us. But we're talking about kids, and I have 2 daughters, 7 and 9, Nadia and Layla. And the level of consciousness that they have is so amazing to where it brings tears to my eyes almost every day. They ask me, Daddy, can you fly? I'm like, yes, I can fly. And so now they're at a point where they know that they can. It's just a matter of reaching that level to where they can actually do it. So they don't doubt anything physical or spiritual because they totally understand and have the consciousness. And when someone brings something to their attention about, religion or God and Jesus, they come to me and ask questions, and they have their own thoughts about it. That's something that I never actually forced upon. But when they come to me, I ask them, and it's just amazing the level of understanding that they have. So in this year of 2012, it's amazing to see the kids, even around them, be affected. And even some of the parents, they come to me and say, your daughters are so amazing. Oh, my goodness, they are like something I've never seen before. And the I hate to say the power that they have over people, but the energy that they put out is also received. And it's just amazing. I wanted to share that with you.
Man, this show, it's such a beautiful show. So much was shared here. And that's why I said 2012, it has its own thing to it. It's almost like it doesn't need someone to confirm it or to believe it. It just is. And that's like Wes was saying. It's just the truth. And the truth is the truth. It does its own thing. And so when you're a holder of it, you're actually a holder of something immortal because truth always stands. Because the universal law is truth. Like I said, there's only really one law, and that's for everything, and that's the truth. And after that, all other subsequent things exist while we're experiencing ourselves through other forms of ourselves. And now we actually have a time in our existence where we understand how to speed through that now. It's not just like we're going through the standard cycle of the evolutionary process, if we want to give it that term, but we're actually we're understanding the tools to speed through it, and we're being brave enough to go through it in a society where it shuns such things. And now it's become to happen so much that it's all the perfect timing. So we only have 90 seconds left in the call. What I will ask everyone to do, just so that the show can rank higher in the Blog Talk Radio engine, if you could listen to that commercial that they play in, just press 1. That helps us out a lot. We want to thank all of our volunteers, the people who come forward, those who came forward on the show today to talk about things that we know are 100% real. Just for bringing us into this wholeness in 2012. I want to send wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone. If you can assist us, we just ask you to do so with your time. It helps, and that's how this whole thing was founded. My name is James Evans Bomar III, and I'm the developer of the Planetary Resistance.